Gentlemen, this is Captain Fry speaking in, I hope, a very reassuring tone, welcoming you aboard this QI International around-the-world trip. We have an impressive roster of VIP passengers on board with us tonight. International man of mystery, Jack Dee. Global phenomenon, Bill Bailey. Seasoned world traveller, David Mitchell. And from another planet entirely, Alan Davis. And gentlemen, if at any time you wish to get my attention, then please don't hesitate to use your call buttons. Jack goes...
Isodare to Inverness, Gate B.
Bill goes...
Iran Air to Istanbul, last call.
David goes...
Air India to Islamabad, now closing.
And Alan goes...
Unexpected item in the bagging area.
Oh, there you are. So, you make sure that all your seats are in an upright position. We're cleared for takeoff. And don't forget that this year we're celebrating our ignorance, ladies and gentlemen, with the Nobody Knows round.
Nobody knows.
If you think that nobody knows the answer to that question, then you can wave your nobodies. You get a big bonus. On the other hand, if you wave it and you're wrong, you get a little bit of an old forfeit.
What are the points that you gain by using it correctly?
I think we all agree that nobody in this universe understands QI's scoring system.
Right. So, by that logic, were we to raise the subject of the scoring system and I was to do that, then... It's made a very good point.
Somehow, I felt I'm trapped in an infinite loop. Yes, fortunately, that isn't one of the questions.
If it were, in the hypothetical round, a question, what is the QI scoring system?
Yes.
And then nobody knows this. What would happen to the person that does the QI scoring? Would they not then feel rather sad?
They
at least, presumably, are sitting there thinking that they know.
His name is Colin. He's very brilliant. He works for Lumina, the scoring system people, and he knows what he's doing. But it is a little bit of a puzzle to the rest of the world.
There's a company out there responsible for the scoring system.
Yes, that's right.
For 9 years we've used them, and they've I think they've served us proud.
What happened before then?
Served themselves.
They must be laughing all the
I think they also do pointless and eggheads and other things like that.
Now?
I think they reserve a lot of their creativity for this show, don't
Yes.
they?
I wonder what the score is now.
Yes, the score now. Amazingly, Bill has 3 and everyone else has 0.
Why 3? I mean, I either thought 1 or 10, but 3?
3.
How would you divide your contribution
Better than
by
you,
3?
better than you, better than you.
3. Let's get going, shall we? Now, if by some terrible, terrible concatenation of circumstances, both my co-pilot and I on this flight were suddenly taken ill, how would you land this plane?
Can't they just land themselves on an instruments landing?
Can't you...
I'd stop reading the Kindle on the steering wheel and concentrate.
That would be a wise start, yes.
Don't you radio... There's the co-pilot slumped, normally.
Yes.
In these situations.
Yeah, someone talks you in.
And somebody talks you in?
That's what happens in the movies, definitely, isn't
Yes.
it?
Like Robert Duvall probably would be good.
Yes.
That's who I'd ring.
Or Lloyd Bridges in the case of Airplane, the movie.
Perfect choice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Presumably there are legal problems with someone talking you down, though, because you could then subsequently sue if it was interpreted by your relatives that you were given bad advice. So probably these days the air traffic controller would refuse to give advice and would say, "I'm sorry, we're not covered for my saying something."
That's right. You'd have to sign a waiver and sort of text it to them, and then they would... insurance would cover you to be talked down.
It is a minefield. Extraordinarily and happily, it has never occurred in commercial airline travel history that someone has been, as it were, oh gosh, can anyone fly this plane because the pilot and the co-pilot are ill or dead. It's never actually happened, but it would be fraught with difficulty. They have tried various simulations. For example, those with American civil private pilot licenses in America who can fly light planes were invited onto simulators of big jets. Yeah. And one of them couldn't even operate the seat that moved him towards the control. Another one turned the radio off. Another one turned off the autopilot and instantly crashed the plane. So the fact is, it's incredibly difficult.
Stephen, am I allowed to say that in your uniform how incredibly unlike a pilot you look?
So what do I look like instead? Be brutal, be frank.
No, I think you'd be the chap who calls himself the bursar. Who comes round, he's got a big leather wallet and takes money for duty-free.
Yeah, calls himself the bursar.
Yeah.
Yes.
He calls himself the bursar?
Yes, I think he does, yeah.
Or the purser?
The purser.
The bursar is like the one that does the money for a...
Public school.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
What a very...
Oh, okay.
What kind of planes are you flying on?
Yeah.
Yes, the bursar will be collecting money for the end of term jamboree.
Here on Charterhouse Air.
Yeah.
The bursar with the trolley, and then with the drinks, the groundsman.
Anyway, the fact is it's fraught with difficulty. The first problem you would have is simply getting into the cockpit, because since 9/11, of course, cockpits are locked. And if the pilot and the co-pilot were truly too ill to be able to fly, they may well be too ill even to let you in to the cockpit. But,
do they have a secret knock?
It's a lovely thought.
When they go and give them their lunch, though, surely they have to get in.
Yes.
So they must have a coded knock or something, like, it's me. I've got your lunch. Something like that. And they go, oh, must be the lunch.
It must be. It must be to do with the lunch. The lunch is. Now, why do I say lunch is?
Because there's more than one.
But why is there more? You are accruing points at a fantastic rate.
God, I tell you what.
Yes, there are more than one. But why would there be more than one lunch? Why would
They have to eat different meals.
Yes, the pilot and the co-pilot must eat different meals.
Oh, in case one of them gets botulism.
Exactly, so that if one is by accident poisoned or whatever. And in the case of extra long-haul flights, there are 3 pilots, not 2.
So you can't get into the cockpit. It's very, very dangerous. Never been done.
Yeah,
so...
and if it was on autopilot, you'd be able, obviously, to fly level and it would continue. But once you got into the landing situation, yes, the kind of film scenario would take over, whereby you would be told how to operate the flaps and at what speed. But there are so many variables in terms of glide path and vertical and horizontal axes and so on. It really is extraordinarily difficult. There is an auto-land system.
There's no way of flying it remotely, then, from the ground? Like with just somebody with a Wii or something, you know. I don't know.
Maybe one day.
Someone comes in the room.
What? Why?
It's a horrifying thought, but fortunately, as I say, it never has yet happened in major commercial air travel. It's calculated that the chances are 1 in 10 if it was an intelligent person and the plane was already on autopilot. They could be talked down. There's a 1 in 10 chance the plane would survive the landing. If it was not already an autopilot, probably 1 in 100.
This is not reassuring.
It's not, is it?
There are 400,000 people in the air at any given time.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's fabulous. Wow. It is very good. There is no question that trampolining is a very popular sport.
Yes, it sounded really plausible.
Yeah. I think I heard it once in a pub.
So there are points if you can give me within 5 years when the autopilot was invented?
Well, I mean...
1965.
1965 we've got there.
1970.
And 70.
77.
77.
I'm going to go for 1945.
Well, you're the closest, but you're still miles away. It's 1914. The first use of an autopilot at the Paris Air Show. It was an American inventor, and they were a huge success.
They big rubber band.
They stood on a
joystick.
A broom. Gyroscope.
Look, no hands, you see? By yourself.
It was a gyroscope. It got so popular, they would literally have the pilots standing on the wings. We've got a picture here showing you, I think, just how impressive it could be. Look at that.
Oh, people were just crazy in those days. All that stuff. That's when people went over Niagara Falls in a barrel.
Exactly. Those were the days of the barnstormers.
You wouldn't want to be ball boy, would you?
No, you wouldn't. But it's a surprisingly ancient invention in that sense. It was really sort
That's
of the
almost
early
before aeroplanes were
Almost
invented.
is, isn't
He
it?
probably
It
had
was-
this thing knocking around in his shed and hoped that something would be invented he could apply it to.
It was a gyroscopic corrective mechanism. It was pretty simple.
Is the modern autopilot still recognisably the same system?
No, I think it's a lot more
They
complicated.
don't have a gyroscope where you have to put a little bit of string in and wind it round and get it going.
But I mean,
So
one of the
it's
worrying
spinning.
things I think about the autopilot is that the fact that, you know, it's on for most of the time you're in the plane. So, you know, they switch it off just before they land, switch
That's
it
right.
off just as they take off. They take off. What the
Yeah, they
moment-
watch the telly, and then every now and then they go to that channel where the map is.
So,
Make sure they're heading in the right direction. And then they put Michelle Pfeiffer back on.
There are occasions you've talked... I mean, there are, of course, long flights. But where is the shortest flight, the shortest commercial flight? Do you know? Oh, Bill.
I think I might know this. I don't know. I'm going to try it. Here I'll go out on a limb.
Yeah.
Is it the Orkney Isles?
Yes!
Is it?
Yes, it is! Oh, Bill, well done. It's,
There's another 4.5 points.
Yeah.
it's between...
27 and a half, I think.
It's between Westray and Westray Papa.
Yeah.
And it's usually done in around 2 minutes. Though the record has been 58 seconds from takeoff to landing. It's the distance...
Do you think people go, I hope it's a quick one today? I don't think...
The distance is shorter than the runway of Edinburgh Airport.
Do they just sort of take off, throw peanuts at you?
It is
Rush
amazing.
back again.
It is but the most bizarre thing about it is the return ticket is £39.
Is this not... Why don't they build a bridge? I'm assuming there's some sort of gorge to be got over.
I assume there is too.
otherwise
You do
they'd
get a
just tax you,
certificate and a miniature of Highland Park whiskey for doing the flight. So maybe people just get off on the idea of doing the shortest flight in the world.
Yeah, no, the sea's quite choppy around there. It's quite difficult. It is a bit like that. They just do the exits and, and here we are.
Well, there we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've arrived at our first destination, which is India. And what I want to know is which of these two gentlemen is going to make the better policeman?
Well, one of them's noticed the camera and is presumably about to arrest the photographer, and that seems to be what policemen do nowadays, so I'll go with that one.
Interesting.
I'll say the
And
one...
he's got a biro.
Yeah, the one with the pen. Writing notes down. And also the other one seems to be more concerned with how he's looking. He's smiling, chatting away. The other one's a bit more sober, more professional.
I think it's the guy in white behind them. He's plain clothes. He's mingling in, he's mingling.
You've missed the one detail that the state of Madhya Pradesh will actually pay policemen an extra
Is it the
30 rupees a month to grow a moustache.
Really?
They consider that policemen are better. They're better in all kinds of ways. They're less intimidating, they work better with the community, they're more respected by the public. Yes, they're extraordinary.
Human
bad
race
news for
never
police
ceases
women.
to disappoint, does it?
Well, it's not unique to India. British had pretty weird ideas about moustaches. In India, they're considered a sign of virility, but at the moment there's a north-south divide. In the north of India, it's rarer to have moustaches because in Bollywood and the cricket team, of course, the great heroes, tend not to have moustaches. But in the south, in Tamil cinema, they all have moustaches. Everybody has a moustache. And that is just considered absolutely...
It's Steve Wright in the afternoon, isn't it? I've never trusted a moustache. I'm pretty the other way.
That's very interesting, because in the British Army in 1860 onwards, it was a regulation that every soldier had to have a moustache. You could be imprisoned for shaving your upper lip. Right up until the First World War, then you had the option of being able to shave off your moustache. So it's not unique to India.
Why did they suddenly, the First World War? Suddenly we're fighting total war. The moustache, that was clearly ridiculous, the moustache. So surely they'd think, if we need moustaches, we need them more than ever now. I think it should be beards.
There, they give you a certain, don't they? I think so. But this, yes, sort of moustache is going to win. Thank you. It's going to win a war, isn't it? But as you can see there, that's British soldiers, typical British soldiers, all of them moustache.
I'm just imagining, Stephen, that moustache is going to have its own website by the end of the...
How long do you imagine the longest moustache in the world might be?
24 feet.
Well, that's a little bit too much, actually.
OK.
It's 14 feet. 14 feet. There it is. It's pretty impressive, isn't it?
Wow.
I mean, this man makes a living out of it. He was in the film Octopussy, oddly enough. I can't remember what he did with his moustache, but it is... it's pretty impressive.
Do you distrust him?
Deeply. If he turned up and said, like, to do a bit of woodwork in the house, you know, and he just did, well, I measure 14 feet, well, I must be... I'd naturally feel...
You wouldn't want to stand at a urinal, would you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, dear.
Trailing around on the floor. He's ringing him out, that's what he's doing.
When you were children, did you have Action Men toys?
Yes.
If I was to show you a picture of an Action Man toy, what could you tell me about this particular one?
Oh, Lord.
That's the Adventurer. Well, the Adventurer just had a polo neck and jeans and boots. He seemed to be a kind of one-man band.
Yes, but this one is a member of an armed service.
Well, he'd be in the Navy.
Exactly. The point is it would be the Navy. It's only in the Navy that you're allowed to grow a beard.
Right,
yes. And there are 3 jolly Jack Tars.
In the Disney Corporation, none of the staff can have facial hair.
Really? In Disney?
Or earrings or anything.
There was a rather good story about Disney some years ago, if you heard about it, but there was a furious email sent out by the head of human resources or whatever to all Disney employees and said, the Disney Corporation takes strong exception to the use by some employees of the phrase Mauschwitz to describe the Disney Corporation. If it is used again, anybody using it will be summarily fired. Within half an hour, they were using the phrase Dachau. I think it's very pleasing, isn't it?
It's interesting they didn't in any way see the irony of the fact that people had said of using a term, a sort of fascist term to refer to their organisation. Well, we'll put a stop to this.
Yes, exactly. You might like to see a picture of some interesting moustaches there. And I have what you might call moustacheabilia. These are real things used for people with moustaches that were used in the Great Moustache Growing period. This is simply to drink. It's a little silver, rather beautifully made thing you put in a cup so that you can sip through here without staining your moustache.
Keeps your moustache
Yeah, keeps your moustache nice and dry. Similarly with soup, you would want a soup spoon. You would just sip through that part there.
Oh.
So you take your soup like so, and you just... like that. And again, I keep my moustache nice and dry.
Nice and dry.
What else have I got here? And this, you may remember that
They
something...
hadn't invented the straw.
Albert Finney. Albert Finney had something like this, didn't he, in Murder on the Orient Express? This is at night when you wish to keep your moustache, and you put this round your ears, like there, and there.
What's that for, though? I mean, what... you say you want to keep your moustache. Keep your moustache from what?
Escaping. Yeah.
'Cause, 'cause wild creatures of the night, I don't know. People who might come and nibble at it in the evenings.
There's a slight air of gimp about it.
There is something a little unusual, isn't there?
The odd thing is that people who are using that spoon and that drink cover, they're people who don't want to look stupid. I don't want to look like a complete arse.
An idiot.
So excuse me while I get out all my paraphernalia for keeping soup off my moustache.
It is true. What you're saying is entirely true. Oh, dear, oh, dear. Well, I'm going to take my moustache off now because it's, causing me rather a lot of pain. Now, this is a question inspired by the International Brigade, who fought, as I'm sure you know, on the Republican side in the Spanish Civil War. Which of these is the odd one out?
Machine gun.
A machine gun?
It's a Sten...
A tomato.
String gun.
It's a Vickers.
Vickers?
Yep.
You ask which one is the odd one out? They all are.
They're all the odd one out.
Of what?
They kind of are, aren't they? Well, there is a misapprehension about jellyfish. If you're stung by a jellyfish, what are you supposed to do?
Wee on it.
Yes. The odd thing is, the jellyfish is the odd one out because it's the only one you're not supposed to wee on.
You're supposed to wee on a tomato.
Yes. Weeing on tomatoes is good, and weeing on
I've never been stung by a tomato.
Not for that reason.
I have to say, if they'd known about the weeing in the First World War, it could have saved a lot of casualties.
Yes, well, it did, actually. They did use them.
After the first wave in the Somme, everyone's following with their cocks out.
It's not quite like that. There's a little more to it, David.
Right.
To get rid of the jellyfish first, it's a fallacy to suggest that you should pee on a jellyfish sting. The best thing you can do is just seawater, which is likely to be around there anyway. Sometimes acid is better than... but you can't be sure unless you know the species, but just leave it alone and use seawater. Tomatoes, well, the fact is the world is running out of phosphorus, and human urine is an extremely good fertiliser for tomatoes.
When you said urinate on tomatoes, I thought you meant instead of salad dressing.
I agree, it was a laxly phrased question. We're quite happy to use animal manure in order to grow things and know that they grow well.
Yes, I know, that's weird, isn't it? But that's because I think we find, and this may be a function of our own self-loathing, we find our own excrement more disgusting than that of other creatures.
Well, speak for yourself. What about the wee in the gun, though? So, why is...
Now, the gun.
Clean
now, what is
it with the wee.
What is the issue with machine guns?
They kill you dead.
The main thing... Obviously, that...
Dead, Stephen, dead.
We have here...
A gun? Christ
we have a gentleman... we have a gentleman from the Royal Armouries. Welcome,
geez.
sir.
Oh, look at that.
Thank you very much.
I'm not going to wee on it, is he?
No, we did ask if he would. He decided... He
Stephen,
declined.
he's left it unattended. He's left it unattended. Come on.
It's a Mark I Vickers 1917 model, as used in the First World War. They were used by the British Army all the way up to the Korean War. Very, very popular form. But the main problem for the operator of them, aside from them getting jammed occasionally, was overheating. And so they had a jacket, and they were water-cooled.
Oh, OK.
But very often, of course, you were fighting in places where there was no water. Now, there's a jerry can at the bottom there. That's not where the water comes from. The water is poured into a hole in the top, and then it sort of condenses and collects in the jerry can. You then reuse it. But in the Spanish Civil War, the phrase "pass the piss" was used, and they would actually fill up jerry cans, and they would use human urine to cool down the guns. It was the only way of doing it, because there was just no water around.
Yeah. So, I see, yes.
Must have been horrible in the trenches, not only the risk of being shot, but then later a very nasty cup of tea.
Yes.
Which jerry can did you use for the...
It's a funny question, isn't it? Because actually Robert Graves, in his great novel Goodbye to All That, claims they used to make tea from the water used in the machine guns. Yeah. Very
But that's not necessarily...
Not necessarily pea water.
Because there's no shortage of water.
No, there wasn't in the trenches.
In eastern France.
No, it was more... Hence, I was saying it was the International Brigade, particularly in the drier parts of La Mancha.
But they probably made sangria out of it, then.
The Russians actually made a gun with a hole in which to pee. They were so used to the idea that peeing into it would be helpful. They actually gave a little pee hole so that you could pee straight into the gun.
Pee and... So
Yeah, that's right.
while you're firing the gun...
I don't think this...
Oh, now that's good. Oh, I needed that. Oh. Surely not. What a relief.
Well, there you are. That's really the answer, I suppose. The jellyfish was the odd one out because it's the only one that isn't improved by being whittled upon. Maybe we can ask our lovely Royal Army's friend to wheel away his Vickers now. Thank you very much indeed again. Now, what was Italy's biggest export in the year 1953?
Frozen urine.
You've been doing so well. Urine. We know you, Bill.
Yes. Would it be dried pasta?
Oh, I'm sorry. It came from a place called Castelfidardo, and it's an object. It had thousands of parts, a really complex mechanism.
A jigsaw.
In 1954, they were overtaken by Fiat, who then were the biggest exporter from Italy with their cars. But the year 1953, amazingly, it was this object that Italy exported more than anything else. It was a musical instrument, Bill.
A hurdy-gurdy. No, an accordion.
An accordion.
An accordion.
Is the right answer.
Yes.
There you are. Rather extraordinary. Yeah. Well, there you are. It's the Italian town of Castelfidardo, which still makes them to this very day and is proud to do so. Now, what did Mussolini want Italians to eat to make them big and strong? Oh. He had a national propaganda day for this foodstuff, and he wanted Italians really to take to it in a big way.
Was it a vegetable? Some sort of...
Not quite a vegetable.
Nuts.
Not nuts, no.
Right, broccoli.
It's something Italians do eat. They have a specialist dish.
Polenta.
Very close. What's a great Italian dish, apart from pasta, obviously?
Macaroni cheese.
Ravioli?
Risotto. Risotto, which is made from...
Risotto
Rice.
Rice, exactly. And Mussolini wanted to kick Italians off the habit of eating pasta and to get them into the habit of eating rice. And Italians didn't take kindly for this at all. And so here are some paddy fields, some Italian ladies growing rice.
And singing while they do it.
And singing as they did it. And rather extraordinary, he had on his side the Futurists. You probably know about the Futurist movement, which was a bit like...
Not yet.
The Dadaists and the... not yet.
Very good.
Almost too quick. Yeah. That was brilliant. Yeah, but the Futurists were an art movement, and they were pretty witty. And Filippo Tommaso Marinetti, who was one of the great Futurists, he said that pasta made Italians lethargic, pessimistic and sentimental. And this caused outrage, as I'm sure was his intention. He opened his own restaurant, and he had some extraordinary dishes. I mean, way ahead. I mean, ahead of Heston Blumenthal or anybody like that. Here, this is my favourite one. It's called Aero Food, all right? Pieces of olive, fennel and kumquat are eaten with the right hand, while the left hand caresses various pieces of sandpaper, velvet and silk. All the while, the diner is blasted with a giant fan and sprayed with the scent of carnation to the music of Wagner. Wow. Isn't that a dish? I think somebody should have the guts and the wit to open a Futurist restaurant again. There are other ones. There was Chicken Fiat. A chicken is roasted with a handful of ball bearings inside. When the flesh has fully absorbed the flavour of the mild steel balls, chicken is served with a garnish of whipped cream. And there's one called the Excited Pig. A whole salami, skinned, is cooked in strong espresso coffee and flavoured with eau de cologne.
I think you've been to motorway services.
I quite like the idea of a chicken that tastes a bit of metal.
Yes.
Well, I love the idea of stroking something while you're
Isn't
eating
it? Using all your senses. Have you ever been to one of those... there's one in Berlin I went to, restaurants where it's completely dark. All the waiters are blind. And they lead you to your table.
Yes.
They recite the menu to you, and you order the food, and it's put in front of you, and you often use your fingers as much as anything. And basically, it just concentrates you entirely on the taste of the food. I know it sounds a bit weird, but it is a fantastic experience. I mean, I'm not saying you should go there every night. I'm really,
in the kitchen as well. Chefs wandering around with no fingers.
I get stressed in restaurants when the waiters don't write down your order. You know, and they say, no, we're a cool restaurant, we can remember it. And you sort of go, well, can you remember it? You surely remember it. Because this is specifically what I have to eat.
Yeah. If I want to torture my mother, which may say so...
then it's a free country.
In a
Do what
restaurant,
you like, Wing Commander.
in a restaurant, she'll say, so what are you going to have? And you'll say, I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to tell the waiter. Right. No, darling, tell me, what are you going to
Right,
have?
waterboarding for you, Mother.
But there are people who can't bear it unless they know what everyone else is going to order.
Yeah.
So it does drive my mother slightly potty not to tell her. Now, as far as pasta is concerned, what sort of sauces fit what sort of pasta? Do you think there's a rule that you should apply?
The Italians have a kind of code that certain pastas hold more sauce. So if it's a very strong flavour, you want a pasta like the little shell-shaped ones.
And anything hollow, they reckon should have a tomatoey one because it's more liquid and it fills the inside of the tube as well.
And they also don't have parmesan on by any means any of it.
No, they often regard that as extremely
And
vulgar.
bolognese is just for idiots.
Yeah, I'm afraid so, yeah. And the other major thing is that we use about 4 times more sauce on the pasta than the Italians do. They just basically coat the pasta with the sauce.
The point is, though, they just have pasta as one of many courses in an
Yes.
elegant meal, whereas we sort of say, oh, pasta is a great way of getting the whole chore of feeding ourselves over with in one great stodgy go. We'll have loads. I'll have a pile of it until I just can't face another mouthful.
Exactly. Yeah. You're looking at the cooking instructions. Serves 4. Yeah, well, double that, I think.
I regard myself in some ways as a sophisticated being, and yet I'm not even ashamed of the fact that I love spaghetti hoops on toast. I just do.
That's what the Italians wouldn't understand.
No,
the thing to do with pasta is to put it on toast.
So what you do after a show, you go home and get some spaghetti hoops, heat them up, put the toast on, turn all the lights out, put the blindfold on.
My life. That's my life. Moving to another country now, but around the same time. Which international head of state snubbed Jesse Owens after his triumph at the 1936 Olympics?
Oh, go on.
Yes, Captain.
Hitler.
Oddly enough, it's not true. It's what the whole world thinks, but it isn't true. And we know this from no greater source than Jesse Owens himself. In fact, it's a really rather sad and a very typically, I'm afraid, unfortunate story. Jesse Owens, as you probably know, won 4 gold medals at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. The Olympics were stage managed, of course, by Hitler. Now, on the first day, Hitler congratulated only German winners. And someone said to him that he should either congratulate all the winners or none of them. So he said, well, in that case, I won't congratulate any winners. So as it happens, he didn't personally congratulate... He didn't personally congratulate Jesse Owens. Were you looking at that?
The bloke on the far right is just going like that at me.
That bloke on the far right
To be
is
fair, I
called
think-
Hermann Goering.
I think surely they're all on the far right.
They're all just taking bets on how high the high jumper's going to go. Be up to there.
The one on Hitler's left thinking I didn't get the memo. I didn't. With this start.
How to dress. Well, no, it is rather extraordinary. As I say, Hitler decided on the second day that he wouldn't congratulate anyone. So he didn't snub Jesse Owens at all. In fact, according to Jesse Owens, he said, when I passed the Chancellor, he arose, waved his hand at me, and I waved back at him. Hitler didn't snub me. It was... Who snubbed him?
So Hitler wasn't such a bad guy after all.
No, it's not that. It's not that.
The jury's still out.
Hitler is, we know, is bad. It just so happened he didn't snub Jesse Owens.
King of England.
No, FDR.
Oh,
The
bastard.
president of his own country. Now, this is a terrible story here. It was FDR who snubbed me. The president didn't even send me a telegram. He won 4 gold medals. When I came back to my native country, after all the stories about Hitler, I couldn't ride in the front of the bus. I had to go to the back door. I wasn't invited to shake hands with Hitler, but I certainly wasn't invited to the White House to shake hands with the president either. He had to use the goods lift of the Waldorf Astoria to get into the reception for returning US athletes, as he wasn't allowed to use the front door.
So Sammy Davis Jr. couldn't go in the front door of the hotels in Vegas where he was performing.
I know. It is simply
He
astonishing.
had to go in through the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, that still happens to me, though, sometimes.
Now then, moving on elsewhere again. Where does the rainwater that falls into this creek go? It's in Wyoming, I should say. Yes, you're right! You're very good at this. You're very, as you probably know, round about the Rockies there is the Continental Divide, and rainwater that falls one side of the Continental Divide will drain into the Pacific, the other side will drain into the Atlantic or the Gulf of Mexico. But in this particular place...
Nobody knows.
It's called North Two Ocean Creek in Wyoming. It just... Nobody, as you rightly say, knows. And there it is. And now, fasten your seatbelts and assume the brace position as we head into a spot of unexpected general ignorance. Fingers on buzzers, please. Name the world's largest pyramid.
Don't know the names of any pyramids.
Is that one in the middle?
Oh, Jack, I'm so sorry.
Am I really that predictable?
I'm afraid you are. Terrible thoughts.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to say something that will be wrong, like Giza or something like that.
Yeah, well, that's where we're looking. We're looking at the three great pyramids of Giza there in northern Cairo.
It's not an Aztec one,
Yes, it is. It is. It is. I wouldn't expect you to know its name. If you did, I would give you 40 points.
I don't know its name, but I'll spit out some consonants.
It's called Cholula.
Oh, Cholula.
Cholula.
I was definitely going to go a lot more...
No, it's not Popocatépetl
No,
or one of
no.
those. It's the Cholula Pyramid. And although it's got a flat top and it's not as high, its cubic capacity is much bigger. It's 4.3 million cubic yards as opposed to Khufu or Cheops' 3.36.
Not actually a pyramid, though, is it?
No.
Well, actually, according to archaeologists and others, that qualifies as a pyramid. There is a word for a pyramid with a flat top. Might you know it?
Unfinished.
Due for completion early BC 497.
It's called the frustum. Name the world's fattest country. Or the country with the fattest citizens, I
Oh,
suppose I
right,
should
because
say.
otherwise I'd say it'd be Russia.
Yeah.
Tonga.
Not Tonga, no.
Fiji.
No, but you're absolutely in the right area. You've correctly...
Vanuatu.
No, you're absolutely... You're so old.
The Cook Islands.
It's so close to around there.
Fiji.
It begins with N.
Not Tonga.
Nehru.
Near Tonga. North Tonga. Nether Tonga.
Is it Nehru?
Nauru, exactly,
Oh,
yes. Well done, Nauru, yeah.
In your face.
It only has a population of 10,000 people, but 97% of the men are obese or overweight and 93% of the women are obese or overweight.
I remember they had a one-man Olympic team and he was in the weightlifting.
Yes, they get rather upset at being called obese, and they say there are stocky people and that...
Big-boned.
And big-boned, exactly.
It's our metabolism.
Well, I'm afraid the fact is you can't really put on weight, as I know to my cost, unless you put things in your mouth. And that's where it comes from. When was the First World War first named as such?
The outbreak, the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand.
You think they called it the First World War straight
Before
away?
it started.
It would be an act of a pessimist to call it the First World War that early, surely. It's going to be some point
No.
after 1939, isn't it?
A realist, surely.
So
There's got to be more of these.
Yeah.
At
what
So
point... Excuse me, I think what I said, people in the box, is after 1939,
Yes,
which may
it did.
contain 1939, but does not mean it.
No, well...
OK. No. After 1939 and after the Second World War are not synonymous. Now, this is just giving you time to type after 1939. Why don't you just type, Mitchell is a cop?
Well, I wouldn't put it past them. Now, the surprising news is that it was in 1918 that it was first called the First World War. And there's a British officer called Lieutenant Colonel Charles A'Court Repington, who recorded in his diary of the 10th of September that he met with a Major Johnson of Harvard University to discuss what historians should call the war. Repington said to call it the war was no good, because that wouldn't last, which was being called. To call it the German War was giving too much credit to the Bosch. I suggested the World War, Repington said. Finally, we mutually agreed to call it the First World War in order to prevent the millennium folk from forgetting that the history of the world was the history of war. And in 1920, he published a book called The First World War, 1914 to 18.
Well, wasn't it called the Great War for a long time?
For a long time, it had been called the Great War, but there had been another Great War before that. Do you know what the Great War was before?
The Napoleonic War?
The Napoleonic War had been called the Great War, yes. So wars do change their names. There you are. A supplementary on this international question. Why did the Colonels-in-Chief of the Royal Dragoons and the First King's Dragoon Guards fail to turn up for duty at the start of the First World War?
They were entwined in an embrace. Only now can we reveal the truth.
It was one of those embarrassing things about...
Oh, I know.
Yes, go on.
Because it was Kaiser Bill.
Yes. Kaiser Bill was, in fact, the Colonel-in-Chief of the Royal Dragoons, and Franz Joseph the Habsburgs was the Colonel-in-Chief of the King's Dragoons. So
That's a security risk.
It was a bit, wasn't it? But we carried on doing this.
It turned out that Osama bin Laden was actually, an admiral of the fleet. That would, that would have been a nightmare.
We appointed Emperor Hirohito a field marshal in 1930, so we carried on doing this. So obviously there was a bit of embarrassment to begin with when they had to go to war with their own Colonel-in-Chief. It was eventually sorted out, and we pretty much spanked their botties. We pretty much did.
After only 4 years of carnage.
Yes, that's right, absolutely. And lastly, on the international journey that we've been enjoying, who invented this salute?
The Scouts.
The Scouts? No, it wasn't the Scouts.
Is this a kind of who were the first fascists question?
Not really, no.
A previous...
Who actually used this as a salute first, do we know?
Oh, was it a Roman?
Unfortunately, not. It was believed... It was basically the French classical artists, notably David, the leading French classical artist.
The artists had a salute?
They painted Romans, and they painted Romans doing this, but there is no evidence at all in Roman literature or murals or art that Romans ever did this as a salute.
They're bound to have done at some point.
Well, they might have put their arms out.
Yes,
but it wasn't used as
why,
a salute.
But,
It just became a common idea that they did this. And so it then became very much the symbol of the Olympic movement. It was the Olympic salute until 1936. And also it was American school children, when they took the oath of allegiance, they did that. And then again, once it became a fascist salute...
Now they do it.
They did the... It's a strange thought that the Nazi salute was, in fact, American schoolchildren and Olympic athletes who really first used it. There you are. It wasn't invented by the Nazis at all. And with that, we reach our final destination. But please remain seated for the scores. Oh, my goodness me. Well, I'm afraid very much in the... bucket class with minus 44 is David Mitchell. Standing room only at the back with minus 27 is Jack D. With a surprising amount of leg room at minus 10 is Alan Davis. Which means that tonight's first-class passenger with 4 points is Bill Bailey. So, thank you for flying with QI International. My cabin crew, David, Jack, Bill and Alan and I wish you a pleasant onward journey. And don't forget the wise words of Halvard Lange, Prime Minister of Norway and citizen of the world, who said, "We do not regard Englishmen as foreigners. We look on them only as rather mad Norwegians." Good night.
Dara O'Brien and friends mock stories that have been in the news this week, tomorrow at 11:20. And there's more of the perfect mix of QI and BBC Two. A new episode to come with Stephen Fry and Alan Davis, Friday at 10.